Help my roommate rob us and make us homeless? Bye bye, Army officer job. Repost, fixed rule 6, by user soon_cardinal. After my son was born and my wife almost died from pulmonary embolisms due to undiagnosed lupus eating her lungs. We finally managed to go on our first family vacation when my wife's health recovered. To preface this, we had to get a roommate to help with bills during this time, and a longtime friend was happy to help out and get a reasonable place to stay. Now, this is where Army Liar comes in. I had known this guy for almost 2 decades, spent entire summers at his family's place and even lived with him on multiple occasions. I genuinely thought of this guy as my brother, cried in each other's arms type shit. But as dumb people do, he developed a massive ego after his parents paid his way through Colorado State University Pueblo. He started hanging with the definition of giga-chads, and all of a sudden is nothing but conservative politics and lying his ass off to get into the reserve officers training program for the Army at the college. This is important for later, working out at the college with his brothers and generally being above hanging with people who couldn't have a golden parachute from their parents. So, Army Liar graduates, gets commissioned as an officer, and it's a shock when he wants to come hiking and partake of adventurous, generally wild college youth stuff. My roommate gets together with him, and through the wonders of the World Wide Web, we had a great time. I managed to decompress from my almost dying wife, as well as the struggles of being a new father. Now, back to vacation, we visit family in Oklahoma. I had not seen my family in ages and it's a great time. When we arrive back home, half the whole house is empty. There is a note from roommate that Army Liar helped him move all his shit out and good luck. Understandably, this was a terrible turn off events. Any parent will tell you, you can't just plop some rando in the now vacant room due to trust concerns and an infant present. Now, I'm frantic at this point. Tons of our shit is missing. Our marriage documents, birth certificates, lease, wife's 3DS and more, all gone. I start blowing the roommate up and Army Liar calls me. He proceeded to tell me he orchestrated it all because roommate was not really happy here and needed to move back to Central BFE Texas, from Colorado. I know, it's silly. I am obviously upset, but Army Liar was my chosen brother, literally take a bullet for him. I explain that I am missing all the things I've noticed. This motherfucker has the nerve to say, "Yay, not my problem." I was floored. He had spread some bullshit about me treating my roommate badly to his whole family and they stopped talking to me. These are people who essentially raised me, housed me, and who were better parents than my own. I'll confess that I did something then that I was not proud of at the time. I told Army Liar that if he won't at least help me get my things back, I would have to contact his army supervisor and explain how he essentially just helped rob me. He laughed and told me to go right ahead. In the end, I caved and didn't do anything. I was too mentally and emotionally exhausted, my wife was crushed, and my son was upset by our constant crying and worrying about how we were going to pay our bills. Ultimately, we lost our place and were forced to attempt moving back with my parents, which was not a solution because my mom is a terrible human and had filled every available space with foster children to game the state for money. We lived out of our car until I found a temp job in Houston, which ended and decided that they were done with the project I headed and terminated my position after telling me I would be moved to salary. Back to living in a car. This was the darkest time of my entire life thus far, and more than once I fantasized about driving my family off a bridge or into oncoming traffic just to escape this hell. I finally landed a stable job back in Colorado, was able to get counseling, and rebuild our life in a way that depended on nobody but myself. Happiness actually came back into our lives. My 2-year-old son would never remember this dark period and I made friends who put Army Liar to shame. But what's this? I hear from some old friends that Army Liar dropped them like old garbage, and they missed him, wondering if I knew where to find him, and find him I did. Turns out bitch boy, Army Liar got married and was traveling the globe as an army officer, strongly exuding the whole 10 yards of my shit doesn't stink vibes. I remarked to one of my good new friends who just left the Navy that I couldn't believe they gave Army Liar a security clearance with all the things Army Liar had done in the past which would disqualify such a clearance. My friend told me that Army Liar most likely lied and had his new bro friends do all his interviews because if the army found out they wouldn't have cleared him. Cue the gears to start turning. Turns out it's incredibly easy to get in contact with people who care in the army. I talked through Army Liar's complete past, leaving nothing unsaid. I threw my own dignity to the wind and spilled every illicit detail of the shenanigans we were involved in as 18-23-year-olds, including the previously mentioned relaxing hiking trip. The one he took after his swearing in. Needless to say, guess who should pop up on my LinkedIn feed is transitioning out of the army without a listed clearance. Now, army liar and his wife live at separate addresses, and I'm sure that has nothing to do with forwarding his past full of legally questionable deeds to her good Christian cell phone number, but we will never know. I now go look at his obviously depressed face on LinkedIn anytime I'm feeling down. Don't ever let people convince you to forgive and forget, burn those bridges down. They deserve it, and I promise it will be the best feeling you have ever felt. I know it was for me.